looks good. With that, welcome back to another session, another update. It's 2026, and together with Florian from the committee
Hello, guys, and
and
all of
Samuel.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, everyone.
Um, just wanted to introduce you shortly to anyone who is not yet familiar with who you are. But I think Florian is here for the fourth time actually. So most people should already know you. And today we're going to talk about the latest changes, which are to some extent quite spicy, I would say. And in another direction, maybe a bit expected, but also there might be a part of the community that says it's a bit questionable. But today we're here to discuss this. So I would give it over to Samuel to directly start with the first card.
Yeah, I think this is a card that it's been in debate for quite a long time. The card has some fun decks with ninjas, but its main deck in the format has been Storm for a very long time. We're talking about Rograkh, son of Rohgahh, with a lot of H's. Um, So yeah, the first iteration of the Storm deck that was really problematic was with Dark Ritual and Breach. Those cards got banned, so we needed some time to see how the deck played out after those cards got banned. Green got added, and I think the deck kind of, with the additional green cards, got back to a very meta relevant deck, and there has been some sentiment among players that cards are banned um, too fast and that the metagame doesn't get time to adjust. Um, what do you think how do you think that factors into Rograkh now? Do you think the metagame has had enough time to adjust to a very strong Storm deck as being like a very present player in the format? And how do you evaluate that there has been enough time, and if a deck is still problematic after that?
Well, this decision was one of the most complicated one of this announcements. We weren't really sure to that it was needed change. It's possible that the June version of Rograkh will ultimately be better than the version with Tevesh. The deck creates most of the time too many dragons before turn 4, and it seems a little bit too powerful for the formats, and it's very difficult to deal with. Where with the last version, it was more graveyard centered combo deck. And to answer to your question, like we always try to allow time, probably 2 or most of the time 4 months at least, for players to adapt, and then we make a decision. Here, even with this version was pretty new, like I would say 3 months old or something like that. There are a lot of complaints about this version of the deck, and we had to like gather some conclusion. We asked, Felix, you are one of the regional coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, we asked like your point of view about this subject, and most of the feedback was the deck was problematic. So
Yeah.
we took we've tried to handle this situation, and you've talked about breach in the last change about the deck, but
Mhm.
this time like Rograkh was the centerpiece of this storm archetype, so we had to deal with that.
Yeah, I think I personally agree to your point, because when you told us that the decision was made, I thought about the comparison between the Junt version and the actual Rakdos version, and I also talked a bit about that with Samuel. And I personally think that the Junt version might have even been like a forced evolution because of the cards that were banned. Underworld Breach and Dark Ritual needed a substitution in some way. But it seems to me that the addition of green really benefited the overall game plan, and it made the deck even better, in my opinion, from what I'm actually
Okay.
witnessing. Playing against it mostly. I've not really played it myself. We have one player in our community who's a big fan of the deck. He might be very sad now. Shoutouts to you. He exactly knows who I'm talking about. Or yeah. Um. So I think it just makes sense at that point that we don't try to cut off more and more cards from the 99, but instead tackle the main problem, which seems to be the command zone. There are so many synergies in the 99 around that. The card draw spells, including Skull Clamp, things like Diabolic Intent. We get 2 storm counters more with the Yorkville line due to sacrificing it or playing it for 0 from the command zone. We sacrifice it to any of those effects. We play it for 0 again from the graveyard, which effectively cheats 2 storm cards. And if I have a look at the cards that were recently printed, things like Nasty End, for example, it doesn't look like the support is going to stop in that direction. So yeah, and we've also seen like really crazy results on MTG Top 8, people performing with it all over again, and also in bigger tournaments, we have professional players playing the deck with a very high success rate. So I think after all,
Yeah.
it's kind of what people expected. It's sad for the Ninja Brew, or also there was the Junt Rograkh mid-range brew. Sad for those piles, but as we said so many times, you can't keep
Yeah.
up tier 5 decks, or tier 5 is
Yeah.
hard. Let's say
Yeah.
tier
Well,
3. But yeah, you cannot keep those
we've
decks up.
lost a ninja deck
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
for sure.
Which is kind of sad because it was a cool brew, but for the sake of keeping the format healthy, I think it was time for the card
Yeah.
to go.
In a way, we try to compound a format where interaction is key.
Yeah.
So we want to promote game where the decks are able to interact, and in this case, with this combo deck, only a discard spell or counter spell would work, and it most of the time not so efficient. So
Yeah.
it was an issue.
Yeah, and also it felt like talking to players that have lots of repetitions with the deck. They told me you can effectively play around counter magic, you can effectively play around graveyard hate, because as you said, the previous variant, Rakdos version, was more reliable on the graveyard itself. While now you have the graveyard as one out, but you also can just pay a bunch of rituals into dragons. Whether it's, I think, aren't there even, no, there aren't 3 dragon spells, but there's a new one from Avatar that was also added to the 99, I think. So in either way, I guess it's for the better. Although, as we said, we lose the cool decks. But maybe,
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar place. I played the the list a little bit. I still have it together in paper now. Um, Obviously, I will need to put those cards back in the binder now. Um, and it's a super fun deck to play, but I do think that with the Rograkh in the command zone, you get to keep a bunch of hands that any other deck couldn't, because you have a Skull Clamp, because you have a um, you have a Deadly Dispute, you have a Culling the Weak, you have these cards that only are playable when you have the Rograkh, and the card is such a big role player in the deck that eventually that like the storm aspect gets carried by having just a 0 mana 0/1 in the command zone, and I think that is a rate that you can't really beat, and there's not much to play around, because you can, like, against the counterspell decks, you can just keep drawing cards, keep playing out your commander and the greedy freebooter type cards to kind of accrue value over a long time, and then eventually you untap and you have 8 cards in hand and you have a bunch of mana, and then they're not going to have enough counterspells in order to deal with all that you're doing. And at the end, you cast a Stormscale Scion and make 20 dragons. Like this kind of these plans, like a bunch of decks are just not quite fast enough to deal with the deck, and it's not that interactable. So I am absolutely on the side there, that something about the deck is not fair, and I think taking Rograkh and leaving the rest of the pool intact in order to maybe at some point have another Storm deck again, but um, the this aspect of Rograkh is just a little bit too strong, I think, as well.
Great to hear. Nice.
All right, let's move
Hmm.
over to a card, or the first of 3 unbans today. It's our good old friend Tasigur. And this is a card that I witnessed back then for a very short period of time, because it was banned rather quickly, if I remember correctly, mainly due to the fact that it was cheating on the commander text. Back then, command zones costed much more mana, so this was effectively paid for 2 or 3 mana, 4/5 with an okay effect back then. These days, maybe not so good anymore. But there were some good reasons, because it was very much dominating the meta game, and it got more or less quickly removed. So this aspect about cheating the commander text, this is probably my first question. Since you now decided to unban Tasigur, do you think the concept is still valid? Like, when evaluating commanders, we have to just upfront, we have to differentiate between effects, because here we still have to do something in order to reduce the commander cost. In examples like Eureka, you don't, right? Eureka will always be 2 mana cast from your command zone. Same as the Revi would also always be 4 mana from your command zone, no matter what. In this case, same as with affinity or other abilities, you still have to work for it, and yeah, it's not completely free. So, what do you think about this concept of cheating commander text? Is this
Well,
something that,
first of all,
yeah?
oh, sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, it's not just. I was just about to ask if, in the discussion around Tasigo, if
Hmm.
I could imagine that that was also something that you talked about.
Well, first of all, there are two points with Tasigur.
Mhm.
We've heard some feedback from the community that a lot of players ask for unban, and we understood we have to try to we have to take some risk at one point. You were right. We must be very cautious with commanders who may cheat with taxes, as you
Mhm.
said. But in this case, this tax can be hindered. Like Tasigur, just like Lumra or combo Reanimator deck, um, can be deals with serious aids. When Tasigur was banned, I'm pretty sure Fatal Push wasn't printed yet. So
I think
it
that's
was
right,
like
yeah.
uh,
I'm
okay.
just thinking about it. Was
So
Fate Reforged was before Kaladesh? I think so,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Yeah.
No,
yeah, I think so.
yeah,
So
long before,
Okay.
like 2
Yeah.
years.
in this ancient time, most of our actual tools against graveyards wasn't even available. Like Tassigur's body is very decent, difficult to deal with for some deck as a like a Spiderman. So now a 4/5 very early is still efficient, but it's not so strong as before. And most of the deck play at least some elements of graveyard eights. You know, like all of the or most of the white deck will play the 2/2 protection from black, protection from red, who exile all of the black card in the graveyard. Most of the deck will play Urza Saga with probably one or two piece of graveyard heads. So we are pretty convinced that the recast of Tasigur will be ended at some point. Like it will not be so easy to cheat Tasigur like the second or the third time.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be the same for sure.
Okay.
Like and moreover, I forgot something that moreover, if you want to include some pretty good cards in your deck, like Oculus, Murktide, Link to Dust, we you have
You're
to
also
put
taxing your
some
graveyard with them.
constraints. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You put some
Yeah,
constraints on your builds.
yeah, that's an interesting consideration. I think
What
um,
what would be your point of view about that?
I I think I like the kind of the experiment of unbanning it. My initial thought is that it might be too strong because we have cards like um, I always forget the name of the card, the 2 mana green spell that mills 4 cards, you get a permanent from it, and
Malevolent Rumble.
it makes you an Eldrazi.
Malevolent
Malevolent
Rumble.
Rumble.
Rumble um, and Thought Scour and all these and like there's a couple of I'd say efficient versions of putting multiple cards in your graveyard and discounting your commander. And Tasigur does dodge quite a bit of the red and black removal we have in the format. Most of the white removal still hits it, but if you don't have access to those colors, then sometimes it will be hard to deal with. But overall, I think that's like if you compare it to say an Atraxa, which costs a lot more mana, but also does a lot more when it enters the battlefield. Tasigur also doesn't do that much when it's in on the battlefield, and a 4/5 body doesn't compete that well with the quality of creatures in combat that we have nowadays. So I think it's definitely a cool card to see. Um, I in my mind it goes into like a similar category as Asmo, where like I think Tazigor won't be a huge meta player, but when you're at a tournament, you will have a good chance of seeing of playing against one Tazigor. And I think that's a cool place to unban a commander into.
I think so too.
But
It's also because, card is cool flavor wise, people like it. So you got some bonus points there, I would say. Regarding the second question, because you told us in the previous updates that you never unban cards if it isn't for a reason, a strategical reason, because you've probably witnessed that in this case, I would assume control decks are falling behind a little bit recently, and that's why you want to push this archetype by giving it another command zone back? Or is it simply because you re-evaluated the banned cards and you thought, as you explained now, okay, this card in 2026 might not be as big of a threat as it was back then? Which of those two categories would rather be assigned to Tasigur?
well, both could be true.
Okay.
Like we don't really know if Tasigur is an ideal control deck. Like it could be played with a mid-range or tempo-ish version. With some a lot of Tarmogoyf, Barugoyf, and all of this stuff. Or if you could play Tasigur with a control shell, even if Globs is available. So, well, player will answer to that. To be honest,
Yeah, that's
and in some way, like as you said, the card seems decent, but not too strong with all of the quad quality nowadays.
yeah. Yeah, I
Like
also think
it doesn't deal with Barugoyf, and Barugoyf is 3 drop, so
and it's always a 3 drop, right?
time has changed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I personally I see two versions to build this card. You either go in a very graveyard, like some kind of Sultai Rohgahh, with lots of self mill and stuff, and Rogakhs and Vengevines and maybe things like this that you want to play from the graveyard or cheat from the graveyard, maybe even with some reanimated cards, or you just go classic control. As was mentioned in the comments, mostly Demir, maybe adding a few green cards, good green cards, and then just going for classic control. Maybe some of those lists might include Upheaval because it might be a good card in combination. At least it was played back then. I'm not sure if it's
Well, I
a
think
thing
upheaval
today.
is not relevant in on board states anymore,
I
unless you
mean,
are like actually ramping.
the thing is that
So much
if you
can go wrong when
if
you
you think about
upheaval.
think about the fact that it kind of acts as a cataclysm, and in a shell that focus very much on controlling the game state, maybe you can delay the game towards a point in which it becomes relevant.
Yeah, maybe I think the issue is that you either have to discard all your lands with Tasigur, or get to a state where like you play upheaval, you have another land drop, and then you discard all the cards, and then the turn afterwards you can play Tasigur. I think that's but yeah, there will be some fun ideas with Tasigur. I think one of the coolest things to do is to
Neo format.
neoform
Yeah.
him
I
into
knew
Eldritch
you were about to
Evolution
say
him.
that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think there's some cool lines there, especially if there is like when you do play self mill, suddenly you also have the access to incidental reanimation, and like you put all your big guys in the graveyard, and all the other cards you can exile with Tasigur, and if you are reanimating Vaultborn Tyrants and all the other good cards that you can reanimate in that archetype, that might be a strong strategy too. So I think we will just have to wait and see. I think it's a cool sign that it's a very open deck to build. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
on the other side, do you imagine like paying 4 mana to get only one only one extra card in 2026. Like
I mean, combo decks still do play and activate Thrasios, which
that's
kind
true.
of is a similar effect.
but
However,
much
you
better.
are always getting the worst card
Yeah.
with Tasigur. And there are some there, like, for example, activating this card in the reanimator version of of Tasigur is going to be really bad most of the time because the opponent gives you back your reanimation target and then and then you have to discard it again, and the commander doesn't help with that. So yeah, there's going to be some, like, I don't think the ability is going to be activated too often because there's usually, you have to play some cards that are quote unquote bad, and
I think it's
the opponent
actually
will just give you those for 4 mana.
it will maybe even rarely being activated, right? Because at least in the proactive variant, you will always be busy playing more impactful spells, and if you end up in a situation where you're completely empty, then it's fine to use it. But
Mhm.
up to that point,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. But okay, that's, as you
Yeah.
said, Florian, that's up to the players to explore that. And we can have a look at another card that was
Well,
released from the ban list.
yeah,
Trazyn.
I think it's fair to bundle these two
Could we
cards
talk
together.
about the... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It was my
because
point.
Trazyn and Necrotic Ooze both occupy very similar slots. Um, where I think that even Trazyn as a commander might be worse than having Necrotic Ooze in some mana combination, some bigger color combination, and just reanimating Ooze instead of reanimating Trazyn or playing Trazyn from the command zone. Yeah, they are both cards that are part of very linear combo decks, and both cards that lose pretty hard in the face of graveyard hate. And I think the interesting question here is, does unbanning these cards have something to do with Nadu and Rograkh being banned pretty recently? Because those are two cards that two bans that very aggressively go at banning combo decks in the format, and now we're seeing the unban of another combo, a different combo, but another combo. Yeah, how do you, is this some kind of meta balancing call, or do you just think that the cards aren't good enough to be on the ban list anymore?
Well, we didn't we didn't know if the cards are okay for the format right now, but as I said, we want to promote interaction. And for the combo part of the metagame, the graveyards is a crucial part. Well, it's it is our point. Like all of the card affected today depends on the graveyards. They all have the same weakness. Like it was pretty difficult to deal with Nadu. It was pretty difficult to deal with Stormy Dragons. With such a move, in a way, we would like to encourage players to include Graveyard 8 in their decks as form of interaction against most of the combo decks. These are strategies that worked very well several years ago, but we assume that will no longer be the case.
I think from a standpoint of playing old stick fingers back then, you know that when Trazyn was still legal in the 99 or overall,
Mhm.
I think the combination for the combo itself is rather clunky. And I really like this aspect that you just talked about regarding motivating players to board more graveyard hate, or to make it like a substantial um thing, or like to have like a substantial amount of graveyard hate in the 99, because combo decks that we know, or semi combo decks that walk around, which I will say, for example, Reanimator, already use the graveyard to a very big percentage. And we also have other things or other decks abusing the graveyard. We have Slamfoot decks that work with the graveyard. So it's beneficial there. Even Spider-Man, by flashbacking a reckless charge,
Yeah.
works with the graveyard. We have, well, there's so many things, right? Flage, for example, needs the graveyard in order to play the commander, and so on and so forth. Many people claim, or I think it's not a claim, it's actually true, that the graveyard somewhat became your second hand in some decks, because you can generate tremendous amount of advantage just by recasting things out of the graveyard or interacting with it in some way. If we just think about how many matches, Samuel, have we cast last year in which control matchups were decided by Cling to Dust being escaped several times from the graveyard just to draw those
Yep.
3 more cards. And it was just this
Yep.
one card. And that's just, I think that already makes for a great example. And also there are countless examples, I think. There's Asmo and whatsoever. So many decks using a
And
graveyard.
I
So
think
yeah.
Cling to Dust is actually the perfect example in this case, because it's a card that gets to be played because of how it interacts with the graveyard in our format, where we have so many cards that incidentally do something with the graveyard. You know, it'll steal a point of power off a Nethergoyf, or it will stop a Flage from being unearthed, or um, it will stop a Memory Deluge from being flashbacked. So all these cards that end up in the graveyard and and have some interaction, like, it's always correct now to play a Memory Deluge, because it's the best graveyard not a Memory Deluge, a Cling to Dust, because it's the best way of interacting with graveyards, I think, overall, because it always has a use case. And we have seen in the past, when decks like Inala were popular, these sorts of things, decks starting to play Cremate, and I think there's another
Yeah.
Cremate. These, I think it would be problematic if we got back to that kind of level, but control decks playing, maybe playing Rest in Peace, and all green decks playing Endurance, and all these sorts of things. I think that's a good place to be, because Wizards has also proven in the last 2-3 years that they are designing their games so much more around the graveyard, and so many cards are being printed that have to do with the graveyard, that I think it's also fair to kind of unban cards that interact with the graveyard, because of the expectation that all decks are playing graveyard interaction.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's pretty hard.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, it seems pretty hard to find the right balance between all of those graveyard eight cards. I'm not saying it's free to play like Neil Spellbound in your deck, even Cremate. Like, it could cost you some tempo to include those cards in your deck, but in the same time, uh, they are pretty great tools against most of the decks. So,
Yeah, I think we even see, even prior to now banning Rograkh, we saw an adaptation from the metagame towards that, because if you think about decks like Magda, that I personally also played for a couple of leagues and at a paper tournament, this deck is full of graveyard interaction, and it's actually working out because, it's not only here for committing crimes, but also because the graveyard hate is useful. And then we see a Sanctifier on deck in Yoshi being played, because Yoshi has to have some tools against those graveyard decks, against Reanimator, against Storm, etc., etc. And Asmo is also, I think, a great example, a deck that both utilizes the graveyard very much, at the same time, with all these Fate of Memory, how's the one from Amon Kid called? Cannot remember right now. But it's also uh, playing Fairy Macabre and all those things that tackle the graveyard from your opponent. So we see this development already because some decks can afford to be built in a certain way. And also, it seems the players have already understood that this development is undergoing, and we have to do something against it. Of course, also because of decks like Terra being very dominant, very omnipresent. Not like super dominant, maybe, but Samuel, you definitely have more to talk about that. But I think it's the one of the most powerful ways of playing Reanimator that has ever existed in Duel Commander, because there are so many different ways, angles to tackle with this card combination. I mean, of course, there are two variations being played, with the pure reanimation list, and also the one that features dogs, a bit more of a mid-rangier variant. But still, there are just so many good reasons to play all those graveyard hates. And I think with that in mind, having cards like Necrotic Ooze or Trazyn doesn't seem too scary to me, to be honest. Also because I think both cards finish more or less the same way, right? Now we could say,
But do you think those cards will be played?
I personally think no, because last time we talked about Vanifa, and as we said, Vanifa is this deck that has to play a bunch of dead cards in order to go off. If you have a look at today's combo decks, they almost never feature any cards that are dead in a certain situation. And that's also the reason why I kind of dropped my pet deck Breakfast, because Lotlef Giant is a clunky piece of garbage in some situations, and you cannot afford that. If we have a look at the Tymna Thrasios lists that were played with Naru being legal, those decks were super efficient. Like, all of the cards were doing something on their own. There was no dead card. There was nothing, especially if you have a look at the evolution of the Tymna Thrasios decks, right? Back then, think about having a Lurin in hand without an actual combo piece. The card was more or less cute, sometimes even dead, if you don't have anything to play right afterwards, sometimes even giving your opponent an advantage because they can play some of their 3 or less drops. So I think it's something that you can't really afford anymore. Also because it takes away lots of your pace, within a matchup against certain decks. Look at how fast Lumra is finishing a game. Yoshi also, if the dog is unchecked and your opponent can just do whatever they want, they can beat you down on turn 3, turn 4 regularly. So yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting conversation around the decks that play what's his name? The guy Horde Lord, the Brood Lord.
Broodlord, yeah.
Brood Lord combo, where in these decks you get to, so you have Buried Alive is the obvious key card that lets you put Necrotic Ooze and the two enablers into the graveyard in one card. And then if you have any reanimation spell to go along with it, then you are sort of then you're in position to win the game with that. So it gives you the kind of simple game plan of um, tutoring for Buried Alive, casting Buried Alive, reanimating your dude, and then you win the game. And that's a similar line with the Broodlord, where you put the Broodlord in the graveyard, and reanimate it and win the game that way. So we already have this kind of 2-card interaction with the Broodlord, and that gets played. So I think it will remain to be seen if a similar thing will happen with Necrotic Ooze. But I think the Necrotic Ooze combo is worse than the Broodlord combo. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of seals the deal for me in thinking, let's just wait and see. Maybe some players will find an incredible combo with a great commander that kind of puts all this together in a way that's very difficult to beat. But I'm
Survival of
a
the
bit
fittest
skeptical.
could be played with Ooze. Like as you said, maybe there is some room for improvements, but we we have to admit something. We didn't find any way out to crack it. Like Ooze could be played in some um, green black mid range deck. Like seems great to activate Ooze to create some insects if you have Priest in your graveyard, or activating Ooze with Ballista in some way. But all of those situations seems fine for us.
Yeah.
Ballista has also made its history in Tymna Thrasios, just now that you mention it. Back then when
And I have a signed foil Triskelion that I'm happy to put in a deck again at some point. So
I'm not sure if you will.
uh,
Because it sounds pretty bad to do that. But okay.
but it's
For the sake of
very
having
cool.
fun, I get that. Okay. Today, we will not talk about any additional cards because Florian has a limited schedule. And we also talked about many cards at the last stream, so we will take the opportunity next time, I think. And yeah, apart from that, there are the usual suspects that we could talk about, but there's nothing new that I would add to the list personally. So there's nothing really that changed or, that would have the need to talk about again. That being said,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for joining us today, Florian.
With pleasure.
And thank you very much for tuning in and accompanying us. I hope you all enjoy the new update. I would say happy brewing and see you next time.
Exactly.
Thanks for watching and
Thanks for
see
the
you next time.
invite. Bye.
Bye bye.